All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to day 4 of the Digital Health Week campaign organized by Cyber Jagrithi in collaboration with South Indian Medical Students Association and Bleed with Pride. So, today's session, Postural Restructure, has been designed to teach you about the importance of good posture, the long term consequences of poor posture, the effect of mental health on your posture, as well as exercises and techniques to improve your posture. We have with us three speakers today. So, first, we have Patrick Hyde. He is qualified as a chartered physiotherapist from the University of Ulster in Belfast in 1997. He has over 15 years of experience working within private practice. Prior to this, he also gained many years of experience working within the NHS. With a master's degree in back care management, Patrick is one of the most highly qualified physiotherapists in the West Midlands. Patrick has worked with a variety of conditions, including catastrophic brain injuries. He has a keen interest in injury prevention, conditioning, and rehabilitation, acute sporting injuries, long term rehabilitation, spinal cord injuries, stroke patients, and many, many more. Thank you so much for joining us today. Next, we have Hasya Singham Shetty. She is the council member of the Council of Medical Education in SIMSA. She's a third year medical student from SVIMS, Shri Padmavati Medical College for Women, Tirupati in Andhra Pradesh. She's a people person, a philomath, and committed towards her work with immense interest in sports and dancing. Next, we have Rachna Mekala, a council member of, again, Council of Medical Education in SIMSA, a final year medical student from Mala Reddy Medical College for Women, Hyderabad. She's always enthusiastic in learning new things and likes to volunteer in social work. She's a trained Kuchipudi dancer and she likes dancing, cooking, as well as traveling. Okay, and last but not the least, we also have Pradyumna. He is also a council member for the Council of Medical Education SIMSA, and he will be participating in a skit. Okay, so without further ado, let us begin with our presentation today.
Hey Pradyumna and Rachna, how have you been doing?
Hey Hasya, I'm doing really great. And I've actually got used to this new normal life. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing great too. Hey Pradyumna, what's wrong with you? You look so dull. Is everything all right?
Oh yeah, hey guys, you know what? I've got this severe backache and even this shoulder hurts, okay? I don't know, maybe because of these long online classes and meetings. By the way, how are you girls so fine and how are you managing it?
Yeah,
Okay,
we get
we get it.
What are you talking about? What do you get?
because we know
We
why
know
you're.
what's wrong with you.
Yeah,
What, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me, guys?
There's something wrong with your posture, Pradyumna.
yes,
My
yes, Ash.
posture. What's wrong with my posture?
You need to maintain good posture in order to get relief from all these aches. Not just
Good
getting rid of them, but also not to face them in future.
good posture. What do you mean good posture? How do I know what a good posture is?
That's why we are here today, Pradyumna. So Hasya, I, along with Patrick sir, who is a chartered physiotherapist from UK, we are going to tell you what is postural health and its importance.
Okay, thank you.
Today. So this is Hasya Singh, and we'll be dealing about postural health today.
Good evening to all the viewers out there. I'm Rachna, COMI member.
Yeah, one second. We will dive into the topic without any delay. So, coming to our topic, posture restructure. So, what is this posture? Please keep your answers coming in the live chat as well as in the comment section. Meanwhile, let me ask Pradyumna about this. Pradyumna, do you want to take a guess what a posture is?
Posture. I think that the way we sit is called a posture. I don't know. I actually don't know.
Ah, of course, in a way, you're right. But let me explain you in detail. So, what is posture? Posture is the way how you hold your body. So, it's again of two types mainly. One is dynamic and one is static. So, dynamic, as the name suggests, it's the way how you hold your body when you're in motion. That is like when you're moving, like walking, running, etc. Whereas the static posture is the thing how you hold your body when you're not moving or when you're at rest. For example, sitting, standing, lying down, etc. So now, what is a good posture? So good posture is the alignment or the attitude assumed by your body parts to maintain stability and balance with minimum effort and least strain during supportive and non-supportive moments. So here you can see a pictogram depicting two different postures, and the top one depicts the good posture and the below it depicts the wrong posture. So you can see this is the picture which we have to pay a lot of attention to because most of us do not know how to lift the objects from the ground to the above. So this is the correct way of lifting objects. You have to bend your knees first and then lift the objects, not like this. So please make a note of this and make sure you do not repeat this mistake. And now, what does this good posture actually mean? There are some criteria which we need to consider in order to make sure that we are maintaining a good posture. Those include chin being parallel to the floor. So make sure you hold your devices or make sure you put your desktop at your eye level. And so that the chin will always be parallel to the floor and you will be looking at anything straight. Also, your shoulders must be even. You can roll up your shoulders back, down, or something like that in order to make sure your shoulders are even. And also, neutral spine. Your spine must be neutral. That is, the spine is nothing but it consists of 33 vertebrae starting from the neck to your lower back. So they must be even and they must be straight, and arms should be lying at your sides with elbows straight and even. This implies to the posture when you're standing mainly. So you shouldn't put them in weird positions. It must be straight beside your body. And your abdominal muscles must be braced and tight. So abdomen is nothing but the area which consists of your stomach and beneath it. And your hips must be even. Hips or the pelvic bone. They must be even and your weight must be distributed equally. Also, your knees should be even and pointing straight ahead. This is the commonest mistake we all do. So, as I can't show you my legs right now, think this as my legs. So, and these are my knees. So, most of us have this habit of crossing our legs or, widening our legs apart. And so, our knees will be pointing quite opposite directions. So, this must not be the case. They must always be pointing straight ahead. And also your body weight should be distributed evenly onto the both feet. So for this you have to make sure that whole of your foot is touching the ground and it's parallel to the ground. And here is an easy acronym for reference to remember and check on yourselves as frequently as possible. So it again goes by the name posture. Here, P stands for pelvis, which should be neutral. As we already talked about it, your hips must be even and neutral. They must, for example, the hip bone is something like two halves connected in between with a joint. So when you're swaying to one side like this or like this, you're putting a lot of weight or pressure on one side. So it must not be the case. Make sure your hips are even and neutral. And the second one is on the whole foot, as we already discussed. And your joints must be stable, your abdomen must be tight, and your ribs must be upright. So when you're slouching like this or bending forward like this, your ribs are not actually upright, right? So you have to make sure your ribs are always upright and your shoulders must be retracted. Retraction is nothing but pulling back of shoulders. So please do not make it so rigid. Make sure they're somewhat retracted. That's it. And you have to relax them. Don't make it rigid. Also, your ears should lie over your shoulders. So it means like when you're sitting like this, ears are not actually above our shoulders, right? So we have to make sure our ears are always above our shoulders. So now how do I sit properly? Keep your feet on the floor or on the footrest if you cannot reach the floor. And do not cross your legs as we already discussed. And keep a small gap between the back of your knees and front of your seat. As you can see in the picture here, you have to maintain some gap between your knees and your seat. And your knees should be at or below the level of your hips. Please remember, this is a normal sitting position. There are some other postures where you can alter this position, but at present, please remember this is a normal position. And adjust the backrest of your chair to support your lower and mid back. You can also use a pillow or something like that for your support. And then you have to relax your shoulders, keep your forearms parallel to the ground, like you can keep your arms on the desk or on your laps when you're sitting. And avoid sitting in the same position for a long periods of time. Please keep alternating between sitting and standing or moving, most probably for every 30 minutes. And also keep the head and neck in a neutral alignment. So you might have heard of a lot now. So here's a small video which is very interesting and very, very relatable to our day-to-day life. So let's go through this.
Has anyone ever told you, stand up straight, or scolded you for slouching at a family dinner? Comments like that might be annoying, but they're not wrong. Your posture, the way you hold your body when you're sitting or standing, is the foundation for every movement your body makes and can determine how well your body adapts to the stresses on it. These stresses can be things like carrying weight or sitting in an awkward position, and the big one we all experience all day, every day, gravity. If your posture isn't optimal, your muscles have to work harder to keep you upright and balanced. Some muscles will become tight and inflexible. Others will be inhibited. Over time, these dysfunctional adaptations impair your body's ability to deal with the forces on it. Poor posture inflicts extra wear and tear on your joints and ligaments, increases the likelihood of accidents, and makes some organs, like your lungs, less efficient. Researchers have linked poor posture to scoliosis, tension headaches, and back pain, though it isn't the exclusive cause of any of them. Posture can even influence your emotional state and your sensitivity to pain. So there are a lot of reasons to aim for good posture. But it's getting harder these days. Sitting in an awkward position for a long time can promote poor posture, and so can using computers or mobile devices, which encourage you to look downward. Many studies suggest that on average, posture is getting worse. So what does good posture look like? When you look at the spine from the front or the back, all 33 vertebrae should appear stacked in a straight line. From the side, the spine should have 3 curves, one at your neck, one at your shoulders, and one at the small of your back. You aren't born with this S-shaped spine. Baby spines just have one curve, like a C. The other curves usually develop by 12 to 18 months as the muscles strengthen. These curves help us stay upright and absorb some of the stress from activities like walking and jumping. If they are aligned properly, when you're standing up, you should be able to draw a straight line from a point just in front of your shoulders to behind your hip, to the front of your knee, to a few inches in front of your ankle. This keeps your center of gravity directly over your base of support, which allows you to move efficiently with the least amount of fatigue and muscle strain. If you're sitting, your neck should be vertical, not tilted forward. Your shoulders should be relaxed, with your arms close to your trunk. Your knees should be at a right angle, with your feet flat on the floor. But what if your posture isn't that great? Try redesigning your environment. Adjust your screen so it's at or slightly below eye level. Make sure all parts of your body, like your elbows and wrists, are supported, using ergonomic aids if you need to. Try sleeping on your side with your neck supported and with a pillow between your legs. Wear shoes with low heels and good arch support, and use a headset for phone calls. It's also not enough to just have good posture. Keeping your muscles and joints moving is extremely important. In fact, being stationary for long periods with good posture can be worse than regular movement with bad posture. When you do move, move smartly. Keep anything you're carrying close to your body. Backpacks should be in contact with your back, carried symmetrically. If you sit a lot, get up and move around on occasion. And be sure to exercise. Using your muscles will keep them strong enough to support you effectively, on top of all the other benefits to your joints, bones, brain, and heart. And if you're really worried, check with a physical therapist. Because yes, you really should stand up straight.
So yeah, that's an interesting video, I guess. So here are some examples of why we need to maintain good posture and why does it matter actually. So in order to avoid back pains, headaches, and also reduce the wear and tear of joints and reduce the muscular tension, and also to improve better circulation and digestion. So yeah, did I say digestion? Yes, of course I did. So, what is the relation between good posture and digestion? Please keep your ideas coming in the live chat or in the comment section. We will come back with an answer really soon. And also, there's an interesting point. You can actually appear taller, slimmer, and more confident. Yeah, you could actually feel it. So, if I say the same dialogue sitting like this or like this, yeah, you can appear so confident. It's not worth it, right? So, yeah. And here's another question for you all. What do you think? Is posture and position the same? Please let your ideas coming in again. Meanwhile, let me disturb Pradyumna once again. Pradyumna, do you want to take a guess on this again? What do you think? Do you think the posture and position the same? Hello.
Are you talking? Sorry. I think the position and posture are very similar, but they obviously have differences according to actions that you're performing.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for that answer. Yeah, of course they are same. But the thing is, position is something like a vague term. It include a lot of things. It's not just confined to our alignment. Whereas the posture is so specific to our alignment of body. So that is the basic difference. Nonetheless, they can be used interchangeably. And now we come to the types of posture. These three are the normal postures while we are standing, but there are slight differences between these three. Let us go through them. So the first one is easy posture. So this is a good symmetrical and balanced position, and this position cannot be maintained for a long time. So the person will try shifting his weight in a swaying movements in order to prevent weakness or fatigue, in order to consume their energy and to maintain a good circulation in the muscles of legs while standing. So by doing these movements, you can actually make your muscles periodically get unloaded and relaxed. Whereas the next one is the fatigue posture. This is an asymmetrical or sagging posture, and this is also referred to as a relaxed position. And it can be maintained for a long time because most of the body joints are in semi-flexion. Also, the load on the muscles will decrease, and the energy expenditure is 10% less than the easy posture. And coming to the last one, the rigid posture. It is called posture of attention, and it doesn't mean normal posture. We are all aware of this posture because we all assume this in our assemblies during our schools. Attention and standard is yes. This is that same posture. And this position can also not be assumed for a long period of time because most of the body's joints are in extension. So the load will increase on the joints and muscles. Also, the energy expenditure is 20% more than the easy posture. So, in summary, there are three types of normal postures while standing, and based on energy, they can be placed in a decreasing order like this. Rigid is more than fatigue, is more than, oh, sorry, rigid is more than easy, is more than fatigue. And from here, Rachna will take over. Over to you, Rachna.
Thank you, Hasya. Now that we have learned about what is a posture, what is a good posture, why does a good posture matter, and what are the types of posture, I will be talking about what poor posture is and what are its effects. Coming to the definition of poor posture is a position resulting from any deviation from the ideal alignment for a sustained period, which means if your body posture deviates from its regular arrangement for a sustained period of time, it is called as poor posture. What could be the causes resulting in poor posture? Well, I have few reasons where we can develop poor posture. One is defects in joints, such as stiffness or immobilization. If there is any stiffness or immobilization of a joint, that results in decreased movement around that joint, which is restriction uh, at that point of joint. So that will lead to poor posture. And if there is any defect in your bones, such as shortening of your bones, or if there is any deformities like kyphosis or scoliosis, or even if you have knobbed knees like this, if these are my knees like this, or if you have bowed legs, that will also result in poor posture. When coming to the muscles, if there is weakness in your muscles, or if you have unused muscles, they will tighten. If the muscles get tightened, the bones underlying those muscles get compacted. That also results in restricted movement around that muscle and bone. So that also results in poor posture. And coming to vision or hearing, if suppose there's any impairment in your eyesight or hearing, what do? You usually tend to move forwards, bend your head forwards to listen or to have a better eyesight. So that is how you might develop poor posture. Another important cause is occupational positions. Certain occupations like carpentry or workers in industries and factories or even to that matter, the drivers, they will have to constantly repeat their movement. And coming to the occupations such as nurses, doctors, and even teachers who will have to stand for longer hours, their spine is at risk. And coming to the most important, software engineers or the IT professionals, or even right now, due to this lockdown, many of us are habituated to our laptops, desktops for online classes, or even watching web series or something like that. So, even at that time, we are risking our spine. So this is how occupation also has an effect on your posture. Also, pain also affects your posture. Next slide, please. Yeah, here are some examples of poor posture. Slouching in your chair, like how Pradyumna was doing, then sitting with your hunched back and shoulders, forwards or backwards, then standing on your flat back or a sway back, also standing on one leg, leaning onto one side of your body, poking your chin out, or pushing your head forwards or backwards, tilting your head, even crossing your legs. All these are examples of poor posture. Next slide, please. Yeah, it was already emphasized about how should you sit. Here are certain examples of how you should sit and how you should not sit. Next slide. Yeah, this is a question to the viewers. Please identify the correct seated posture. Pradyumna, would you like to guess?
Yeah, yes. I think B looks like a good posture. I'll go with B. Is it the right answer?
No, sorry. The right answer is C. Well, I'll explain how. In the picture A, the person is bending forwards. You can clearly appreciate his spine, that he is bending forwards, and even his head is pushed forwards. Well, coming to your answer, which is B, please appreciate the angle, the alignment of the spine. It is not straight. So that is why answer C is right. Next slide. Okay, so how can posture affect your health? Poor posture will cause misalignment of your musculoskeletal system. That was all I was talking about. Then it can also weaken your spine. As played in the video, our spine has three curves, one at your neck, one at your back, and one at your hip. If you're constantly moving forwards or bending forwards and downwards, the curve at your neck will change. So that is how the curvature of your spine might change from an S shape to a C shape, which is not right. And poor posture can also cause headache, neck pain, shoulder pain, back pain, hip pain, knee pain. Okay, and it will definitely decrease your flexibility. It will also affect the movement around your joints. It also has an effect on balancing of your body, and it will increase your risk of falling. Yes, it makes your digestion difficult, and I'll tell you how. Imagine if you are bending forwards. What will happen? There will be increased pressure on your abdomen when you're bending forwards. What is there in the abdomen? The organs. I am specifically talking about stomach and your intestines. So when you are bending forwards, there will be an increased pressure on the abdomen. So your organs will get compressed. When your organs are getting compressed, I'm specifically talking about the stomach and intestine again. There will be difficulty in the breaking down of food. So that is how digestion is affected by posture. And poor posture also reduces your concentration and productivity. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, these are the another. Okay, the effects of posture. Now, if you have developed poor posture, it can lead to secondary deformities. Like I have already told you, spinal dysfunction. It can also cause your joints or bones degeneration. It can lead to compensatory postural defects. And poor posture cause for high energy expenditure in your body, and that will result in easy fatigability. There will be decreased respiratory and circulatory efficiency, and I'll again explain how. Now again, I'm taking the same example of you bending forwards with your head downwards and forwards. When you're doing so, what happens is there will be your ribs which get compacted. What are behind your ribs? Those are your lungs. So when your ribs are getting compacted, there won't be enough space for your lungs to expand. I want all of you to once try this. All of you, please bend forwards with your head forwards and downwards and try to breathe. Now I want all of you to sit properly, sit erect with your back straight, and take a breath again. I hope you guys find a difference, because when you are sitting straight with your back erect, there will be enough space for your lungs to expand, and that is how posture will affect your respiratory efficiency. And coming to your circulatory efficiency, if you have a bad posture, certain vessels in your body will get compressed, and that is how there will be slowed blood supply to a particular part of your body. The same goes with even nerve supply. Even nerves get compressed if you have a bad posture. Next slide, please. Oh, wait. Back. I want you guys to assume this comic to be your parent or your professor or lecturer or a boss, yelling at you for not having a good posture. Like, you have a terrible posture. Why? What the hell is wrong with you? Please stand up straight. Next slide. Yeah. According to the survey conducted by American Osteopathic Association recently, these are the most common pain areas when you are sitting in a wrong position. 63% of them had low back pain. Usually it is from mid back to the low back. 53% of them had neck pain, which was followed by shoulder pain, which is 38%, and then wrist pain, which is 33%. So we suggest you to please make sure that you sit properly while you're working on your desktops or laptops. Next slide. Yes. Now, how do you stand properly? You will have to bear your weight primarily on the balls of your feet. Now, when I say balls of your feet, it means the place between your toes and the arches of your feet. Imagine if this is my foot. These are my toes. If these are my toes, these will be my balls, and this will be the arch of my foot, and this will be the heel. So please stand properly on bearing all your weight on the balls of your feet. And okay, yes. So please keep your knees slightly bent, and leave your arms hanging down. Tuck in your stomach. And yes, like what Hasya said, your earlobes should be at the same level of your shoulders. They should lie in the same plane. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, how should you properly lie? Please choose a perfect mattress that suits you. If you are comfortable with a softer one, choose the softer mattress. If you are comfortable with a firm mattress, please choose that. While you are sleeping, please make sure that you use a pillow. And if you have a neck pain or shoulder pain, you will have special pillows for that. And also, if you are lying down straight, make sure that you have a pillow beneath your knees. But I suggest, not just me, the researchers also suggest that you sleeping onto your side will be the appropriate position with the pillow in between your knees. Next slide. Okay, this is another question to the audience. Did you ever listen about this text neck hump? Okay, text neck hump is nothing but the fat deposition that you see on the neck. Why does this occur? When you are texting constantly with your head down, this is what we usually do. So when you're doing this, the muscles of our neck will get strained, the curvature of our spine changes, and there will be fat deposition at this place, and that is what is text neck hump. Though the comic is exaggerating, believe me, that is a serious issue. Next slide. Yes. So the symptoms of text neck are headache, stiffness and soreness of your neck, then back pain, also shoulders and arm aches. So how should you prevent this? Make sure that you hold your phone like this at your eye level, and please take frequent breaks. Also, this also this is also for laptops. And please avoid looking down for an extended period. Next slide. Yeah, this is how your neck gets affected when you are bending down. See, if your neck is at 0 degrees, there will be 10 to 12 pounds of pressure on your neck, which is normal. But when you are bending down, the neck tilt is around 60 degrees, and it causes 60 pounds of pressure on your neck, which is not right. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. This is cradling of your phone. What is cradling of your phone? It is nothing but holding your phone in between your ears and shoulders. I know most of us, when we are doing some multitasking, or if we have to do something simultaneously speaking over phone, we do this. But this is not right. in the second image, or in the image that is there in the down, those red marked areas or those red painted areas are the areas where your nerves, muscles get strained. So I recommend you to use earphones or earpods or headphones for this. Thank you. I request Patrick sir to take over.
Hi, thanks, Rana. That's really good. That's really kind of you, and very, very interesting. Hopefully, I can build on some of the points that you and Hasya have just discussed. The purpose of the next section is to go through the assessment tools that we use in occupational health, and also to look at sort of some of the referred pain pathways, why posture is important and how that links to pain management and muscle shortening. Can we go to the next slide, please? Great. So Hasya has already discussed display screen assessments, and she did that in great detail. I think what I would just simply add to the display screen assessment is it's very important that it is in a workplace setting, that it's documented. It doesn't have to be a complicated form. Sometimes in the UK, employees will complete the forms themselves. If you're happy with the layout of your desk, your computer, your keyboard, and your mouse, then get somebody to take a side profile photograph on your phone, have a quick look at it, and just draw a couple of lines in your mind so you can see where the screen is in relation to yourself. Later, we're going to see a quick slide about working from home, and a lot of the guidelines that are implemented in the work environment are ignored when people are working or studying from home. This has been particularly prevalent during the COVID pandemic, because naturally people are working from home, but we don't always have space or the financial investment to have a proper desk and a proper chair, etc. Some of my clients, the employers, have invested in standing desks, which are fantastic. It gives the person the opportunity to stand and work, whilst at the same time giving them the opportunity to sit and work. But when I was a student, and still now, I do like my breaks. I think we all do. When we are working from home, we can take breaks a little bit more frequently, maybe. And I think if we could extend frequency of breaks into the workplace, that makes it into a much more comfortable environment. And if people are comfortable, they tend to be more productive. If somebody has got, as Rana pointed out, any gastric bowel issues because they've been sitting for too long, it makes them uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable, you're not going to be able to concentrate so well. So you're going to get a much more productive workforce, and you're going to have a much more active social life if you are comfortable. So this is all going to link in together within the same subject of postural health. We're also going to talk very briefly about the rapid, and the order on the side slightly is wrong around, the rapid entire body assessment, which is abbreviated to Reba. Reba is a really useful tool that I use when I go into an occupational health setting. It means that I can do a task analysis, so I can watch people working. I can then identify one or two postures which I think are putting them at particular risk. I can take a photograph of those postures, and then I can use Reba, which is a rapid entire body assessment, or Ruler, which is a rapid upper limb assessment, to give me an objective score as to how detrimental that posture is to that individual, or should I say potentially how detrimental. It is just a snapshot in time, so they're not perfect, but they are useful, and so we're going to go on to those shortly. Can we go to the next slide, please? Right, this is the display screen assessment, abbreviated to DSE, display screen equipment. I think you see, I'm never overly keen on static pictures. And we've talked about poor posture and we've talked about dynamic posture. So a poor posture is a static posture where the person's there for a sustained period. And so, as Hanya pointed out earlier, if somebody is sat in a very kind of bolt upright position for a very, very long time, that in itself can be as detrimental as somebody who's slouching. The key is movement. There's a video that's going to follow in a second of somebody sat on a gym ball, and the gym ball is creating movement of the pelvis. And really, it's the dynamic posture which is so useful. Now, if I do a dynamic posture now, all I want you to do is have a look at my head height. So I slouch down. That's my low position. That's my slouch. Now I'm going to go to a taller, more upright posture. And I haven't pushed my chest forwards. All I've done is angle my pelvis forwards. Now, you'll see this in the next video, but notice how my height changes. I'm going smaller and I'm going taller. And that's just rocking forwards and backwards on the sitting bones. Now, I have a spine here, which isn't the best way of demonstrating that, but you can see these bones here on either side. Their technical term is ischial tuberosity, which I don't think is very easy to say. But these are your sitting bones. So the weight should be going through these bones when you're sitting. When somebody is slouching, they tend to be sitting behind those sitting bones. And when they sit very upright, they go in front of those sitting bones. And that has a direct effect on what's happening at the facet joints at the base of your spine. Now, I'm going to talk about facet joints a little bit in a minute, because facet joints and the disc, so I'm going to give you an example here of a prolapse disc, but the discs here and the facet joints, they protect the nerves which are coming, and these are the yellow plastic bits that you can see. The nerves are the part that go down the legs or down the arms, and that's where we're going to get referred pain from. So somebody who might get sciatica going down their leg is getting referred pain from the base here, and that's why that prolapse disc is pressing on the nerve, and the pain is then sent elsewhere. Hanya just talked about the incidence of neck and shoulder pain. So I think she said, I've written it down, 53% of people get neck pain and 38% get shoulder pain. So if somebody's getting neck pain, the chances are that the facet joints are not moving freely, that the disc is being compressed slightly or moderately, and that the nerve coming out of the intervertebral foramen, which is the hole that's created by the disc and the facet joints, that nerve may be infringed upon. And so they may then be getting a referred pain coming down to their shoulder and all the way down to their hand. And it's an area of great interest to me, and we'll look at that in a slide in a second. Can we just go to the next slide, please? Okay, now we'll just watch this video, and that will just explain what I've just mentioned. Sorry, we're just waiting for the slide to load. There we are.
Asa, can you make it full screen, please?
Can we watch that one more time, please? Right, so this person sat on a Swiss ball, and they're rotating the pelvis, and that's the same action. The facet joints are opening and the facet joints are closing.
Pelvic tilt exercises.
Very good. There we are. Can we stay on that slide, please? We're just going to go to the slide with the dermatome charts now. That's the one. Thank you. Right. Now, dermatomes are very useful as a diagnostic tool for pain management. So let's just say I've got a friend who plays cricket, and they've got pain in their in their thumb, thumb and index finger. The thumb and index is innervated by the nerve, which is the sixth nerve in the cervical spine. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's your sixth nerve. That's the one which is carrying information from my thumb to my brain. So let's just think back to what Hanya was saying earlier about the text neck hump. Now, we call it a dowager's hump. It's the same thing. And that happens at C6, C7, T1. So I'll show you this on the model. So the text neck hump is happening, and excuse the shape of this spine, it's been used as a model too many times. But I'm just going to count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's C7, that's T1. The sixth cervical nerve is coming out about here. So that's the nerve which is going to be irritated, that's going to cause thumb and index pain. Likewise, if we go up a nerve to C5, that could be the shoulder referred pain. Now that links then to, let's just say, and there's a young person is playing cricket. Now, cricket's a fantastic game played by men and women, and we all are at risk of developing a text neck hump or a dowager's hump. But so you're spending a lot of time texting when you're having a break, and then you're playing a dynamic sport such as cricket, and you're asking for the shoulder to do all of this exercise, all these positions that we were talking about earlier, and because of the text neck hump or the dowager's hump, the nerve is vulnerable from irritation, and so you may find that somebody's got a painful shoulder or a painful elbow or a painful hand when they're playing a sport, and people will often think, okay, the pain's in my hand, in my thumb, in my finger, that's what the problem is. And what you've got to think, you've got to come back up to the neck to find out where the nerve has been infringed upon. And that then has a cause which is posture related. Very, very briefly, we saw a video. I'm going to do a side profile, which I never like to do. Nobody likes their side profile. I hope you can see this, but if I slump, so I'm going shorter, my head wants to drop forwards. Has that shown you? Now that puts a crease into my neck, and that's where the hinge is happening. And that creates what we would call a shear force, as in one joint above, the vertebra above and the one below are gliding next to each other. It's a cutting action. It's actually closing up the intervertebral foramen. It's causing an infringement upon the nerve. If I sit up tall, that hinge virtually disappears. Now, the exercise for a text neck hump, or a dowager's hump as I refer to it, is to retract the chin, and it is a retraction. Now, there's barely a more important exercise out there than a retraction. I had a client recently, and he's had neck pain for a long time, and he showed me all the exercises, and they included a retraction. So I'm thinking, okay, why isn't he able to work on that pain? Why isn't he able to treat himself? And the answer is that he hadn't appreciated how the retraction influences the level in the spine that extension takes place. So when we're working at a computer, when we're looking at our phones, we're dropping our head forwards. Okay, that's opening the intervertebral foramen. What we want to do is we want to extend back in order to get the movement back into the extension, close the facet joints, realign them. But have a look at my neck. If all I do is lift my head, the extension is happening at the top of the neck. To get to the text neck hump, I need to get it down to here. So down to C7, and I do that with a retraction. So if I do a partial retraction and extend, that's hitting about here. If I do a full retraction and get a nice double chin and then extend, that's taking it right down to between my shoulder blades. So the retraction is a really good way of choosing which level in the spine is then hinging in order to extend back, and that reverses a lot of the pressure that we're putting on our spine when we're texting and we're on the computer. So if you have a friend, or if you're working in an office and you're spending a lot of time at a computer, every now and again, sit up nice and tall, retract your chin in, and just take your shoulder blades and just lean everything back a little bit. And even in this video, it just feels nice. It's reversed that pressure. It's taken me away from this position. Brilliant. Thank you. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, now this is a little pet subject of mine at the moment. As I mentioned, in the workplace, we're doing DSE assessments. We're making sure that the employer has done everything that they reasonably can to protect their staff, to make sure they're not at risk of getting the neck pain, the back pain, and the referred pains. And then prior to COVID, people were quite keen to work from home because it creates a nice life balance. It's easier to collect the children from school and still, the general opinion is that most people who work from home are actually more productive. They actually do more work. It's almost as if they have to prove to their employer that, yes, I can be trusted to work from home, and look how productive I'm being. But where are they working? Well, I don't know. I can talk about my family. We've got nice desks and chairs up in the bedrooms, but when I see the most work being done, they're sat down at the dining room table. And I've had teachers come to me for back pain. They're doing their marking. They're sat on the sofa with a laptop. Relaxed sofas are just such a problematic area for certainly the UK. I'm afraid we're all a little bit addicted to watching Netflix and TV series in the evening. You've got to remember it's cold over here, so the evenings are a little bit more kind of wrap up warm and nestle down. And of course, we end up putting ourselves into the most dreadful postures as we're surfing our way through various films and series. But when people are working from home, look, they're crossing their legs, they're stooping, they're working off chairs which don't have proper support, the computers are at the wrong height. And if ever you want to think to yourself, how do we know people are working from the wrong height? It's called a laptop. That's just the wrong name for a computer. There is at no time should people be working with a computer on their lap. They need to rebrand laptops into something else. But anyway, that's a bugbear of mine. Right. So yes, be very thoughtful how you're working at home, and try and apply some of those DSE principles of computer screen height, chair suitability, and then tie in some of the exercises that we're looking at. If anyone's got any comments, please chuck them into the chat. We can answer them as we go along or at the end. And also, if any of my colleagues would like to chip in at any point, please feel free to do so. Please can we go on to the next slide? Right, now, okay, so this is Reba, the Rapid Entire Body Assessment. I've just found this image on the internet, and it's obviously a gentleman working on a production line. There's nothing wrong with what he's doing. The general posture is obviously slightly stooped, slightly rotated. But I chose this picture because not all postures are necessarily wrong. But on face value, you can also look at it and say, well, he is slightly twisted, he is slightly stooping, the arms are elevated. And you can think, well, where is the pressure being applied on his spine? And it's probably just between the lower section of the shoulder blades. How can that be corrected? Well, difficult to do so. Ideally, he would bend his knees a little bit more to bring his body down to a lower level, or in the ideal world, you'll be able to bring the production level up a little bit. And that's where what's reasonably practical is so important. Right, we're going to have a quick look at Reba. We're not going to go through it fully because the slides don't quite give me all the information I need in order to give you the end result. But I'm going to talk you through the basic principles of it. So next slide, please. Right, Rapid Entire Body Assessment, Reba. Neck, trunk, and leg analysis. And that's really all it is. We're going to end up with a score. So in this gentleman's position, and I've just copied his picture over onto this slide, his neck, well, is it tilted forwards or is it in a neutral? Or is it extended? Well, it's not extended by 20 degrees. So I'm actually going to say to this guy, he's not doing too bad. I'm going to give it a 1. If he was really kind of looking forwards at something or really looking back like an electrician maybe who's changing a light bulb, then we'd give it a 2. But we also then have to look, is his neck twisted or is it side bending? And in his case, he's peering up. It's difficult to peer up without a side bend. So he's gone from a 1 with a +1 and then an additional +1. So his score on that particular slide was 3. So what you'd do basically is you'd look at the table, and if we just go onto the slide again, go on to the next slide, you'll see a table. Next slide. Okay, don't worry, we'll go through this. All of these scores are going to go into a table at the end. So in this particular case, we look at it as, okay, score A, score B, score C. The order of these slides aren't quite right. So if I can go to the next one. There, great. So his neck, we look down at table A, his neck, I gave it a 3. Now, if you remember his trunk posture, so I'm going to ask you to go back just 1 or 2 to get to the trunk posture. There we are. There, perfect, thank you. His trunk posture, yes, he's definitely leaning forwards. Is he leaning forwards by 20 degrees? I'd say he probably is. He's leaning forwards by 20 degrees, so I'm going to give it a 2. Is he slightly rotated? Yes, he is. So maybe we'll give it a 3. So now we go back to the table. So that's 2 slides forwards. That's the one. And we go to the trunk, which is the blue box on the bottom left. That's it. We go to number 2. And we follow the number 2 row across until we get to the column, which is number 3. So his initial score is going to be a 5, a 6, or a 7. Then we need to have a look at his legs. So again, if we can just go back again, please. Great. His legs are brilliant. They're nice and evenly placed. He's standing with both feet on the ground. He's not lifting one leg. There's no element of, well, there's a slight partial flexion, I suppose. Yes, I'm going to give that a partial flexion. So he's got a 1 and then an additional 1 for the partial flexion. So his score's 2. Roll forwards again, please, to the table that we were just looking at. Thank you. That's perfect. And then we go to the leg column, which is in yellow, and we go to the number 2. Great. So what we've done here is we've used table A to identify the neck. That's given us column 3. We've used the posture trunk, which has given us row 2. And we've used the leg assessment, which is number 2. So his actual score, I believe, is a 5, but it's very small. Let me see on the table. Yeah, so his score from the first part is 5. I can tell you that his score for table B, which I don't think we have in the slides, lower arm, upper arm. I'm just going to give it a 6, and then that helps us move to table C. It would be nice to enlarge table C, but I don't think we can. But if we look at table C, we're going to go to score A was 5. So we go down to score A, which is the green. There's the 5. So the answer that we're looking for is somewhere in that row going across there. I've given him a 6 for score B. So we come down from score B, which means that his overall total was, I believe, 6. Brilliant. So the Reba score has given him a Reba score of 6. Now, there are then a couple of additions that we can put into that, such as the amount of force and coupling. So say, for example, if he's lifting something, holding something, I know he's not. So for argument's sake, I'm just going to keep it at 6. Now, somewhere in this, there is a conclusion page. So I'm not sure if we need to go forwards or backwards. I'm very sorry about this. Just go forwards a slide. One more. Fantastic. Right. So the scoring for Reba is then 1 to 11 plus, and it's fairly self-explanatory. We've used the tables to determine what the score is. We've come up with a score of 6. I'm not going to profess that to be completely accurate to that person's job. I've cut a few corners, but let's just say it is a 6, because I mean that's fairly central to the 4 and 7 that you can see as the third one down. And it just says that that particular posture was medium risk, and it's recommending that further investigation is carried out soon. Now, if his overall job required a lot of repetition and long duration in that posture, then the further investigation may identify that there's need for investment and change. But from what I can see from that picture and just get the impression I get, I don't think it's a really bad posture. I think he's probably going to be fine in that working posture. But you can see how Reba has been used as an objective measure to give us a score. And so let's say, for example, you've got a friend, a client, a patient who is working in an environment where they're really, hard work, bad postures all the time, and they're in their Reba score is 8, 9, 10, then, we can lean a little bit on the manager. We can say to the manager, look, we've done this assessment. The Reba score is 9, and that clearly indicates that there's a high risk. Now, it then says investigate. So that means going in and doing a proper risk assessment of that person's working posture, and then try to implement change. And that, for me, I think is probably one of the hardest things to achieve in both an occupational health setting and also in the home. Trust me, when you talk to family members later and say, I'm no longer working at the dining room table, I want my own desk, and I want an adjustable height chair, they may look at you and think, okay, who's going to pay for it, and where are you going to put it? And the same applies in the workplace. So there's a lot of barriers to facilitating change. But Reba and Ruler, that we're going to have a very brief look at, they are useful tools for facilitating change. Thank you. Right, we'll leave that. We'll carry on to the next slide, please. Ruler, you can't see the guy's legs. It's more of an interest is in his upper limb. We talked about how referred pain could be coming from the neck. You can see how he's actually holding his neck in a half decent position. But if he was there for prolonged periods, he'd get a lot of tiredness around the nape of the neck, and that can lead to referred pain and obviously maybe some RSI of the wrist, which is obviously an occupational health problem. Brilliant, thank you. Next slide. And then Ruler goes through the same principles. I'm not going to go through it in any detail, but you can see that there's the different tables. You basically follow the instructions for the upper limb, for the upper section of the upper arm, the lower section of the arm, the wrist, the head, the neck, and the trunk. And you go through the same principles, and you end up with a similar style of score that then identifies whether it's a relatively low risk, a medium risk, or a high risk. And so if anybody wants to go through Reba and Ruler as a specific video and as a specific training, then by all means ask, and we can arrange that for another time. But that's good. Okay, let's move on. It's going to get a bit lighter now. That's all the deep stuff done. Right, now I hand you back to Rahana, who's going to now talk about the mental health aspect of good and bad posture. And Rasia, you talked about it a little bit earlier when you rested your head on your hand. How many times do we do this? I mean, sometimes it's I'm tired, I'm bored, but actually, no, sometimes it's actually I'm taking interest in what you're saying. So it could be positive, it could be negative. So I'm going to hand over back to you to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving on to the next important part of our topic today. Can posture affect your mental health or well-being? This is a question to the audience again. Does posture affect your mental health? Next slide. Next slide. Yes. So you may think, the previous slide. Okay. So bad posture not only affects your physical health, but yes, it affects your mental health also. So the answer to my previous question is an absolute yes, that bad posture affects your mental health. Next slide. Yes, so here's this cycle which is perfectly depicting how poor posture, your physical health and mental health are related. If you have developed poor posture, it leads to increased muscle tension, which will cause joint strain. And together there will be joint and muscle guarding, which means there will be restriction at that part of your body, which will actually have an impact on your appetite, on the energy of your on the energy expenditure of your body, and also with your social interaction. This has a negative impact on your mental health, and it again in turn affects your posture. So this is how poor posture, physical health and mental health are related. Poor posture decreases your productivity. Slouching in your chair not only affects your posture, but it also has problems with attention. It makes you feel tired. It also makes you appear unmotivated.
Whereas, on the other hand, good posture will help you in improving to the way you carry yourself and also increases your alertness and productivity, whereas decreases your fatigue.
Yes, and poor posture has a very serious effect on digestion, which leads to constipation. And constipation is a dangerous long-term metabolic issues. When you are slouching, your digestive system gets compressed, and this hinders the job of the digestion and passing of your stools.
So here are some tips to fight constipation. So this is a common position that must be assumed in order to fight against constipation and for the easy passage of our stools. So what you have to do is to straighten your spine, bulge out your abdomen, and lean forward and put your elbows on the knees. For this, you have to make sure that your knees must be higher than your hips like this. For this, you can take a help of this stool and attain this position.
Yes, poor posture makes you appear overweight. How is it? When you are slouching, it forces your organs to squeeze down into the smaller spaces, and those organs will push your abdomen forward and gives your abdomen a bloated appearance, and that is how you look overweight.
So you can see in these two pictures, this is the right posture and this is a wrong posture. So when you're in a wrong posture, all your organs are compacted, they're compressed. Whereas in the right posture, all the organs are in place and there will be no hindering to their activities.
And poor posture leads to depression. As research says, employees who sit for more than 6 hours during their work days have higher risk of anxiety and depression.
Whereas you can improve your mood with movement. So moving muscles will pump fresh blood and oxygen to the brain, which in turn releases mood enhancing chemicals.
And finally, poor posture, uh, sitting for an extended period of time can cause all your internal process to slow down. As a result, your energy levels decrease and you will start feeling irritable and tired. And this is how poor posture increases easy fatigability of your body.
Okay, so we suggest you to alternate between sitting and standing every 30 minutes for maintaining optimal health. Please do not question right now because the session is inevitable, so we have to sit for some time continuously. So that cannot be avoided. Again, we hand
Now
over
we
to
request.
Patrick to continue.
Patrick, sir, you're in mute. Please unmute yourself.
There we are. Sorry, I was muted. I muted myself. I really appreciate the slides that we've just seen. I think the compression of the internal organs is such an important factor, and the longer duration that somebody's organs are compressed, the more, not harm, but the more compression there is, the slower everything operates. And there's the old adage, which is move it or lose it. So the more you're able to kind of grow and shrink and move to side and just kind of rotate and just keep your body on the move, that's not helping just your spine or your perception of your environment. It is helping the functioning of your internal organs, and how people perceive you. I could do a little profile, but I'm not going to. But I can guarantee when I'm slumped, I look fat, or fatter. My tummy pushes forwards. When I grow tall, I look slimmer. My tummy's flatter. My shoulders are broader. It's a more confident posture to adopt. When you're kind of, but at the same time, you can go to one side and you can look thoughtful, or you can look engaged. And so this interlink between a dynamic posture and how you're presenting yourself to other people and how they perceive you, this is all so important and really quite an interesting subject. I'm so pleased to see all the subject matter interwoven into this fantastic subject. Faulty postures. Yes, I like the slide because when you're 63, most of us will have musculoskeletal pains. And not all of those pains will be caused by the activity that we did yesterday. Some of those activities will be sore due to musculoskeletal tightness that we put into our body as a result of inactivity when we were younger. I go back to sport. If you are playing on an Xbox or a PlayStation and say you're 13, 14, 15 years old, and you're spending a lot of time glued to the controller looking up at the screen, you're going to get that thoracic kyphosis, that curvature of your spine, which is slightly accentuated. You may even develop a scoliosis because you're favoring one side more than the other. So when you're 63, you go into the garden, you do some gardening, or you lift some furniture and you hurt your back. Well, the question is, was it the furniture, the lifting of the furniture, that caused your back pain? Or was it playing on the PlayStation, the Xbox, 50 years beforehand, which led to the stiffness in the joints associated with poor posture? Now, when you're 13, 14, 15, your spine is malleable. You can undo the problems. You can take up sport. I like golf. You get a lot of rotation through your trunk. We've mentioned cricket, but yoga, why not? Yoga is a fantastic way of maintaining flexibility through your spine. Dance is a wonderful way of getting flexibility back into it. But you do have to get some targeted stretching, and I think that's quite a useful thing to kind of interplay into whatever sporting activities we do. Right, so can we move on to the next slide, please? Standing. Okay, we've probably spoken more about sitting than standing. We mentioned standing a little bit earlier. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and then there's one person at the end. So 5 gentlemen and 1 lady. So if we look at the sway back, I don't know if any of you go to bars or you drink at all, but if you imagine the person holding a drink on their hip, that's the sway posture. I'm just going to stand side profile and I'm just dropped forwards. And what's happening here, if you can see my pelvis, I'm going to tilt it down slightly, my tummy in. But if I sway forwards, all I'm doing is I'm sitting on my hip flexors, my ligaments here, and my hip flexors, they're stopping me from going any further forward. And I'm really compressing the spine just there. And that's called a sway posture. And if I'm honest, that's the one I go to. Can we go back to the slide, please? Just go back to one more, please. There, brilliant. No, forwards. Perfect, thank you. And then we've got the lumbar lordotic posture. Okay, now I call that a hyperlordotic posture. The basic curve in the base of the spine, this one, that's your lordosis, and that's normal. You're supposed to have a lordosis. But when it's accentuated so much that it's pulling the pelvis forwards and the person can't stand up tall without kind of pushing their tummy forwards, that causes quite a compression at the base of the spine. It's due to tightness in the hip flexors, it's due to tightness in the back extensors. It invariably is associated with weakness in the abdominal region and weakness in the glutes. And the person, the hyperlordotic person, they can normally touch their toes very easily because they're halfway there anyway. What they don't like doing is leaning backwards. And if they do lean back a lot, then you tend to get a hypermobile section where one part of the spine is doing all of the work, and that in itself then becomes a more difficult type of back pain to manage. The thoracic kyphosis, well, the third one, that's just a classic. I've been working at a desk all my life. Maybe I hate to pick on accountants, but that's where you tend to find that posture. The forward head, that's the pokey chin, isn't it? A lot of drivers are currently sat on their car, and their hands are on the wheel, and their heads are pushing forwards as they're focusing on the car in front of them. And then you've got the good posture. And the good posture basically is be tall, be straight, be symmetrical. Right, next slide, please. Right. Well, this is going into a slightly more complicated area. We've already talked about some of it. Pain from stress causing sensitive structures and muscle tension. I think if you throw your mind back to when we were talking about the dermatomes and we were talking about the facet joints and the intervertebral foramen, anything that's happening in my neck area is going to go down to my shoulder. These muscles here are connected to my neck. If I'm becoming a bit asymmetrical, that's going to become very sensitive, and the nerves can cause sensitivity down the hand. That then naturally means that I can't move my head as freely because the muscles have become tight. We call that an imbalance because there's an imbalance between the muscles on either side, or the muscles are weak at the front and very shortened at the back. Sorry, next one. Okay, so now we're just looking at some simple exercises. Now, we talked about the retraction earlier, which is when we're putting our chin back. Now, I'm happy doing that in sitting, but the picture on the top left is actually dropping the cervical spine back into your pillow. And that's an exercise I can do at night time. So I've got the pillow under my head, I'm lying flat, I'm looking up at the ceiling, and all I'm doing is just bringing my head back into the pillow. It's a nice way of exercising the neck. The same goes to somebody supporting their hand behind their head and they're pulling backwards. If you want to, you can also pull forwards and get a nice little stretch, but it's that retraction which is the most important, and then any extension. Another nice way of doing it is to get a towel, roll the towel up. Don't have one here. Roll the towel up, place it around your neck. You hold the towel and then you retract back into it and extend. And that's a really lovely way of exercising the neck. Okay, next slide. We'll go to the next one, please. Okay, now these exercises really are looking at muscle imbalance again. You're looking at the lats dorsi, which is coming down here. That can become just overused. The pecs at the front, they can become overused. People become quite rounded with their shoulders. So you can imagine, rounded with the shoulders, elevated up, but then people go into the gym and they're doing this a lot and they get tight and there's move it or lose it. Think about movement rather than just pure power. Power comes from alignment. So this is where we go back to posture and position. If you have two sports stars who are applying power, they will use joint positioning and timing much more effectively than brute force of muscles. Great. So next one, please. And skip. That's it. Okay. Now these are fairly standard exercises for flexing the lumbar spine. So if somebody's got a tight muscle, a tight connective tissue in the base of their spine, then bringing both the knees up towards the chest can just kind of open up the base of the spine, stretch the lower back extensors a little bit. And the exercise on the right is known, I refer to it as the cat. It's a common exercise seen in yoga, and all you're doing is just alternating the position of the pelvis. It's what I'm doing in sitting. I'm pushing my pelvis forward, I'm pushing it back, but they're doing it in all fours. A lot of my patients will have often said that they don't like to try going onto YouTube and using yoga videos because they're afraid of doing the wrong thing. That's fair enough, because I guess if you go on YouTube and you go onto the yoga videos, there's always going to be somebody on there who's going to be asking you to do stuff which is beyond your natural ability. However, what is the wrong thing? The wrong thing is being static. So long as you're doing a gentle, pain-free movement and you're thinking about the alignment and you're in control of that movement, I would say the wrong thing is to do nothing. Go and seek suitable advice, go and speak to an instructor, and start becoming more dynamic with the movement of your low back. Next slide, please. Now, there's a video in a second which is going to talk about lumbar extensions. This is when we're really extending our low back. So the bottom picture there is similar to in yoga, I guess they call it a cobra. In physiotherapy, we tend to call it a Mackenzie extension. There's crossovers. You can see the top left, the person's doing a hip extension. Hip extension, back extension, they go hand in hand, and the pelvis is the key. If you can do a anterior posterior tilt of the pelvis, you can tuck your bottom in, brace your tummy muscles, pull your tummy muscles in, and that protects your back whilst you're extending your hip. But doing extension work is as important, if not more important, than flexion. The top right is one of somebody who's then moving into more of a flexed exercise. And you've got to get that balance between a little bit of stretching into flexion and a little bit of compression into extension. Next slide, please. Okay, so procedures to train and strengthen the muscle balance necessary for postural control of neck and trunk. Can we go to the slide, please? Right, okay, now the exercise on the left is the retraction. I've spoken about it a lot. It is this movement. The posture exercise on the right is the lower trapezius. So as Hazia said at the very beginning, standing with your chest pushed out is a very kind of standing to attention posture. It's not one that we would really promote. The one that we want to promote is sitting tall with your shoulder blades pulled downwards. Not back, not up, not forwards, just down. And if you think of them as two plates, they're descending downwards and back over your thoracic spine. So it's up tall and down. And then try and avoid the opposite, which is small and forwards. We all do it. Okay, good. Next slide, please. How to improve posture? Well, I'm going to invite Hazia and Rachana back in whenever they want to. But yes, move it or lose it is so important. They're really useful tools. Rachana, would you agree that it's good to just generally be quite tall? So I don't know. Would you agree that it's generally quite a good idea to be nice and tall as she improves her own posture? Excellent.
Yes, sir. Yes.
You were talking about sleep earlier. Do you prefer to see people sleeping on their side?
Yes, sir. Sleeping onto your side is the appropriate position.
Yeah. And what I tend to notice is if you sit on a chair and you favor sitting to the one side, then you'll probably end up sleeping on the opposite side because that means that your pelvis naturally likes to open on that left-hand side or vice versa. What else have we got in this slide, please? Use supportive pillows. You've got to be a little bit cautious of pillows. If you're lying on your back and putting them under your knees, there's a chance that you're shortening your hip flexors. So that's why lying on your side is more safer. Of course, take regular exercise. Avoid wearing high heels. I don't wear high heels. Rancha, do you wear high heels? Sometimes.
Yes, we do, sir. But yes, sometimes.
Sometimes, but maybe not all the time is probably the best advice then.
Yes.
Right, and trying to avoid stress. That's complicated. It's like Hasnia said at the very beginning. If you're dropping into here and you're putting a lot of strain onto your neck, maybe you're like that, or like this. Stress can be a real kind of distraction from good posture. And be confident, be tall. Don't feel as if you're standing out in the crowd. There's nothing wrong with being tall and relaxed with a good posture. Great. Okay, I'm going to
Yes, sir.
hand you
I
over.
totally agree.
I'm going to hand you over to this little video now, and then we're going quite close to the conclusion of the slides, but we'll just see where this goes.
Hello, this is Dr. Bradley and Luke with The Joint. Today we'll be covering 3 types of postural exercises to help improve core strength. Please perform all exercises as advised by your chiropractor. Poor posture can lead to your shoulders rolling forward and a hunching effect. This first exercise, the prone cobra, helps realign the shoulders and torso. Start by lying face down on the ground. Place your hands near your shoulders with palms facing down. Push yourself up with your hands until you are looking forward, then release. Poor posture on a regular basis can lead to hunching. The second recommended exercise, wall angels, will help to restore normal alignment with your torso and your shoulders. Start in a standing position against a wall. Press your shoulders, heels, hips, and head against the wall. Put your arms against the wall, hands even with your head. Slowly raise your hands over your head. Remember to keep your shoulders tucked down away from your ears. Once you reach the top, lower your hands down the wall as far as possible. Then release. Poor posture can cause your head to push forward. This causes undue stress on the cervical muscles and your cervical curve. Our third exercise helps restore normal cervical curvature and helps keep your head directly above your shoulders. Start by lying face up on a firm surface. Roll up a hand towel and tuck it below your neck at the base of your skull. Relax and let the towel support your neck. Thanks for joining us today. Remember, The Joint Chiropractic is more than just a solution for back pain. It's your key to a healthy lifestyle.
Patrick,
So please unmute yourself.
Again, sorry, I've done it again. Tips while working from home. In the slide, the video, what I said is I particularly like the wall angel. I thought that was a really good exercise. Would you two of you like to talk briefly about the tips while working from home?
Yes, sir. Okay, so design your own working space. Like in the earlier slides we have shown, make sure that you have the desk is at your chest level and your laptop and cell phones should be at your eye level. And think about the chair and desk position, placement of your screen, keyboard and mouse. Make sure that your back is well supported. Please make sure that you have a support for your back. Either it can be a pillow or anything that will support your back to be straight and keep your spine stable and also take adequate breaks which can be usually 20 to 30 minutes in between each phase. Next slide.
So you can go through this picture as well for do's and don'ts while sitting. So you have to keep your head straight and not tilted up or down. Sit with your knees slightly lower than your hips or equal. I'm sorry. Keep your shoulders back and try to relax. These are all discussed already, just for summarizing. Keep your feet flat on the floor, or if you cannot reach the floor, use the footrest. And try to keep, these are the don'ts. Try to keep your back ramrod straight and work without support for your arms. Tuck your feet under the chair. Cross your legs above the knees, as this may cause poor circulation. So these are the things we should avoid doing.
Yes, we have earlier talked about the right sitting position, the right standing position, the right lying position, and now this is the right lifting position. Hasya has already told about this in the beginning of our presentation, that while you are lifting up something, make sure that you bend at your knees. Do not bend on your spine. There's the right picture of how should you lift an object.
Can I just join in here, please? Coming back to the spine, the reason for bending your knees is to keep your spine, let me get in the right place, in neutral, so that the facet joints are not opened and they're not closed, and your muscles have got a chance to support your spine. As soon as you lean forwards at your back, so let me get in the right place. Now I'm not bending my knees, I'm leaning forwards at the back, and I'm putting a lot of pressure upon those discs. It's such an important area.
So this is about correct lifting position, and coming to the correct driving position, make sure you pull your seat towards the steering wheel. Do not bend like this. Do not lean forward like this. So as you can see in this animation, so you have to move your seat forward.
Can I just add though, with the driving, I get into the habit of, when I adjust my mirror on from the rear view mirror, I sit in a good position, and I adjust the seat so that I start off my journey in a good posture. Then when the children are talking to me and I'm moving and all this sort of stuff, and I realize I've just gone a little bit smaller, and I look at the rear view mirror and it's not quite so clear. So what do? Adjust the mirror, or I adjust myself? Okay, I should naturally adjust myself. Okay, next slide.
Yes,
Well, I
these are
think we've
again the
discussed that.
almost same. Yes, we have discussed about this. Yeah.
So this is again the same about the sitting postures. This is the right posture and this is a wrong. So here we summarize different exercises to maintain great posture. The doorway stretch, cat and cow stretch, chin tucking, standing kitchen sink stretch, upper trapezius stretch, and scapular retraction. You can do this by using a rope or a cloth or a towel. These are some other exercises. Kneeling hip flexor. So you can go through these exercises. You can follow them daily as well. Half cobra pose, plank, and bird dog. So I request Sir to take over again.
Well, in summary, everything that we've talked about starts with having a personal awareness. If you don't have personal awareness, then maybe people can take if you've got a child that you're concerned about, maybe by just using their phone to take a side profile photograph can bring awareness to how they're sitting, and maybe you can talk about how they look taller when they've got a more suitable posture. You're hoping that they're then going to engage. There's a chance, and certainly in a gym environment and certainly in a clinic environment, when people are motivated by reducing pain, then there's a good chance that they will start to practice some of the techniques that you've been talking about. Biofeedback, such as using the rear view mirror when you're driving, is a really useful tool, and particularly, maybe something that you can see over the top of your computer. If you're able to look out of look over the computer and see a picture, a photograph, and when you're sitting upright, you can see the whole photograph. When you slump down, you can only see half the photograph, and so that can be a little bit of a biofeedback tool. Training is so important, and particularly in the workplace. And of course, this is training. This is fantastic for people in the community to listen to. it takes investment, and employers have got a responsibility to invest in manual handling training and invest in awareness about DSE assessments, and to get the managers to actually engage. So employer engagement, workplace risk assessments, investment, financial investment is so important. But there's no point in employers making financial investment if the users are not then going to engage and actually use the actual equipment. And as Rajana and Hasia just said, breaks are so important. So thank you very much. I think that concludes the presentation. Is there anything? Are there any more slides and any more questions?
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for taking out time and joining us today.
That's been my pleasure. What's this last slide?
Yeah, this is a small animation. This is so cute. Let me show this to you all. Give me a sec.
Hey, I see you slouching again. Please sit straight and relax your shoulders.
That's ideal, isn't it?
This is a cute video.
There we are.
Thank you all for joining. We'll take some questions now. Over to you, Swati.
All right. Okay. So there are a few questions, and I think I will direct most of them towards you, Sir Patrick. So our first question is, what posture do you recommend is the best for when you're sitting on the ground or on the floor? It's a common practice in India to sit on the floor and sometimes even have meals while sitting on the floor. So how do you recommend we maintain a good posture?
Yeah, I'm very grateful that you've answered that question. You've asked that question actually. My experience of traveling was particularly in Thailand, where my wife and I lived with a family practicing Thai massage, and we would eat with the family in the evening. And the area that we've been working in, the cushions were removed, a blanket was put down on the floor, and we would eat with the family using hands to eat with, not using knife and forks, and basically, sitting on the floor. And as a European, I found it really uncomfortable initially. My knees were stiff, my hips were uncomfortable. But what I observed, and that's the joy of traveling, I think, is you get the opportunity to observe. The family never sat still. I always remember the young man who was a little bit sporty. He was always changing his position. He was always moving to another position. Sometimes it was cross-legged, sometimes it was kneeling, sometimes it was on one knee. And I realized what he was really doing was a yoga program. I mean, yoga's evolved from people feeling uncomfortable, from living in an environment where they, are having to move. And so a lot of people would argue that cross-legged isn't great because it kind of leads into a stooped lumbar spine. Other people would argue that a squat posture can put pressure on the ankles, the knees, and the hips. And I do love the memory of a chap just literally sat back on his haunches. And just rocking forwards and backwards. I mean, it's a great. I can't do it. I've become so chair orientated. I've lost that flexibility, or maybe I've never had it. So there isn't a single answer. But I guess the right answer is don't sit still. Keep on the move. Is that fair?
I hope
Yes,
that
sir.
answers everyone's question.
Good.
Yeah. So, I mean, commonly what we do at home is we recommend sitting in the Vajrasana pose. So I think that follows a few of the principles that you had recommended, is maintaining a good spinal posture, and our knees are kept forward, but our feet are in the back. But that might again put pressure on your ankles. So I guess you're right. Maybe you have to keep changing your posture.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So another question that we have is the spinal exercises that you recommended. How long do you think we should do it every day?
Okay, yeah. When I first qualified, I was working in hospitals and I was teaching exercises as well as I possibly could to people. And I was getting a bit frustrated because people were coming back and saying, "Yeah, I've done the exercises, but not very much." And I'm thinking, well, what's the barrier here? And the barrier is that people have active lives, they're busy. And so I realized I had to adjust the way I was teaching exercises. So with the exercises that we've looked at in the video, we saw the back extension, the cobra, I think they called it. That's great if you've got time and if you've got space and you've got a suitable environment to lie down on your tummy and to push up and arch your back. But the concept of the cobra is to put extension, so leaning backwards rather than stooping forwards all the time. Well, if I just tilt this, if I bring my pelvis forwards to there and back, that's flexion, that's extension. And I can feel that compressing across here, which is where most people get back pain. So if you do that as an exercise when you're sat at a table, then you're doing a back exercise just as a part of normal life. And I'll do it now. There we are. I've done the exercise and I release it. It took me 6 seconds. And I can do that. I'm sat at my computer whilst I'm talking to you. I can do that, and I could be typing at the same time. I can use my mouse at the same time. I can bring food to my mouth at the same time. So then you start to think, well, hang on, is this an exercise or is this normal movement? As part of my dissertation, I did a literature review on recovery of arm function after a stroke or after a neurological infarct. And we have to write about what's normal, first of all. Now, the timing of muscular activity, when I go to lift my hand, the very first muscle that the brain engages are in my feet. I've got to have a base to operate from. And so the feet, the legs, the low back, the pelvis, they're all trying to get into the right position before my arm even moves. So if I'm reaching for a something on a shelf from sitting, I will grow forwards from the pelvis. So if I just tilt that down, I am growing forwards with the movement. So the hand and pelvis are now linked in motion. And so normal movement is what we're trying to put into normal life. And by doing so, exercise and posture management just becomes the norm. And if it's the norm, you've got a good back. It's a really nice way of doing it. Does that answer the question? I hope so.
Yes, I understand. Okay, I think that's a brilliant answer, actually, quite comprehensive. I hope the audience is able to take the most out of this. Due to shortage of time, I don't think we can take any more questions. But I really want to point out that today's session was very, very enlightening. I learned a lot. In fact, I think as the presentation was going on, I found myself, in odd postures. I found myself doing this, and I found myself, looking down at the phone like this. And then the slide about the text neck would come up, and so yeah, I mean, I learned a lot, and I realized the mistakes that I was making as well. And I don't think it's something that can change overnight. You really need to practice good posture and make it a lifestyle, make it part of your habit. Today's technology puts us in so many unnatural positions, and we are not used to that. Our bodies are not developed for that. So we need to try and inculcate these habits into our lifestyles. All right. Okay. So with this, I would like to conclude our session. Thank you so much, Patrick, sir, for
Thank you.
taking the time out and joining us today. You have come all the way from the UK, and thanks to technology, we are able to connect very, very easily.
Very good.
I really
Brilliant.
appreciate all the effort you've put into the presentation and all the insights that you've given us, especially with
Thank
the
you.
spine model. I think it's made it, the visual effects were really added to it. And thank you so much, Hasya, Rachna, and Pradyumna as well, for giving us a lovely presentation and your skits in between. I think it made it a little more, lively. I would also like to thank
Thank you.
Cyber Jagrithi for giving us this platform, and Bleed with Pride. And on behalf of SIMSA Komi, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today.
Thank you.